Hey there. Ready for a deep dive? We're going to be exploring AI design today. But not just the technical stuff. We're talking about crafting experiences.
Right, going deeper. And we've got a fascinating perspective for you. Jason Newham, the creator of that AI companion app, Dot.
Dot. And we're diving deep into his Dive Club interview.
He had some really interesting things to say about infusing AI with, well, something more, something human.
That's what caught my attention too. Jason, he's not just talking about code. It's like he sees tech design as this form of storytelling.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, his background is actually in theater, so it makes sense.
Right. And he connects that to how design can impact society, even evoke real emotions.
It's like he's saying tech can be more than functional. It can touch your soul. And that's a really powerful idea.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Soul in design, because it's huge for Jason, right?
Totally. It's like he's saying great design, it's got to have meaning, a story. It can't just be about being good at the technical stuff.
So more than just aesthetics, it needs a deeper purpose.
Exactly. Like, what impact is it having? He wants designers driven by a desire to make things better.
It reminds me of the first iPod. It wasn't just the tech, it was the feeling, right? How it fit into your life. Is that kind of what Jason's getting at?
100%. And his time at Apple, it's clearly had a big influence on him.
It makes sense. Apple's always been about the experience.
Right. He talks about how they were obsessed with understanding people, what makes them tick, especially when you're designing for millions of users.
Yeah, you can't just throw something out there and hope it sticks. But Jason's also cautious about those sci-fi AI cliches, right?
Oh, yeah. He doesn't want to just recreate her. He's got a different vision.
Okay, so what is that vision?
Yeah.
What does he want to see in AI companions?
He sees them as more nuanced, not just spitting out canned responses. They need to be capable of really understanding individual users and adapting.
So how does Dot actually fit into all of this?
Dot is designed to, in Jason's words, to see, hear, and accept you with all your complexities.
That's a pretty high bar for an app.
It is, but that's what he's going for. It remembers your story, helps you write the next chapter.
Okay, hold on. How do you even go about designing something like that?
Well, they have this design philosophy. They call it 99 no's for every yes.
99 no's? That sounds intense. What does that even mean?
It means they're constantly prototyping, experimenting, refining. They're willing to try tons of ideas knowing most won't work.
So it's really about pushing boundaries.
Absolutely. It's how they get to those groundbreaking ideas, like Dot's long-term memory and the way it's visualized.
Oh, right. I read about that. The pinch to zoom thing. How does that work?
So say you're using Dot and you want to recall a conversation. You actually pinch the screen like you're zooming out on a map, and boom, you get this chronological view of your interactions.
Wait, so it's not just a list of messages. It's more visual.
It's like flipping through a visual journal of your relationship with the AI. You see how it's evolved, all the memories. It makes the intangible tangible.
That's pretty cool. It feels like you're building a shared history with the AI, not just firing off commands.
And that leads us to another key thing about Jason's approach. He prioritizes feeling over pure functionality.
Interesting. So it's not just about what the AI can do, but how it makes you feel.
Exactly. He designs the emotional experience first and then builds the technology to support it.
Wow. So he's starting with the feeling and then figuring out the how.
Yep. And while Jason is definitely excited about the potential of AI, he's also cautious. He talks about finding balance, especially with stuff like generative UI.
So not everything needs to be this super dynamic AI-powered thing.
Right. Sometimes, familiar and consistent is good. You don't want the user to constantly feel lost.
I get that. Sometimes you just want to know where the button is. You don't need it to reinvent itself every time. So what does Jason think about the future of interfaces?
He thinks they'll be way more than just mimicking what we see in the physical world.
Okay, what does that mean?
He sees potential in water as a metaphor for how interfaces could work.
Water, they'll be fluid. I'm not sure I follow.
Yeah, think about it. Most interfaces now are you click a button, something happens. Probabilistic computing, it's more fluid, responsive, in unpredictable ways, always changing based on what's happening.
So less menus and more like navigating a river.
Exactly. It's about embracing that AI fluidity, that adaptability to make really dynamic, personalized experiences. It's different from how we use computers today, for sure.
Yeah, it's like a totally different way of thinking about it, almost like a paradigm shift. And Jason sees AI as this driving force.
100%. And he's pushing us to think bigger than just automation. He sees AI as a tool for creativity, self-expression, even spiritual growth.
It's deep. I love it's not just about making our lives easier, but about unlocking something more.
And it comes back to that storytelling idea. The stories we tell ourselves, the stories our work tells, they have real power.
So it's not just designing products, but designing the future, right?
Yes. He wants us to ask, what kind of future are we creating and how can AI help us get there?
It really makes you think, tech as storytelling, shaping the future. But okay, I got to ask about the practical side too. You said Jason and his team, they're all about experimentation, right? Finding those aha moments. Did he give any examples of that in the interview?
He did, yeah. They were really hung up on this idea of a hyper-accurate AI memory for Dot. Like, they wanted it to remember every single detail perfectly.
Which, I mean, sounds kind of like the goal, right? Perfect memory. Who wouldn't want that in an AI?
Right. But here's the thing. Through their 99 No's process, they found out that it actually made using Dot kind of overwhelming.
Really? How so?
It was just too much information, you know? People felt bogged down by it.
So instead of being helpful, it was actually stressful. Like having this super smart AI was more of a burden.
Yeah, kinda. Plus, it made it hard to trust that Dot was really learning because it wasn't clear what it was remembering or why. It was just this massive, like, data dump.
Okay, I see the issue.
Yeah.
So how'd they fix it? How do you go from perfect memory to something that feels more human?
They realized they needed to focus on the experience of memory, not just the accuracy. Think about how we remember things. We don't just list facts.
Right, it's about the stories we tell, the emotions, the whole picture.
Exactly. And that's how they landed on that pinch to zoom thing. Instead of perfect recall, it's about revisiting your history with the AI.
It's like they step back and ask, what are we really trying to do here? And by focusing on the feeling, they found this really elegant solution.
It's so smart, right? Sometimes the best ideas come from questioning those initial assumptions, thinking outside the box.
Makes you think what else we could unlock if we just shifted our perspective.
Totally. And this all ties into something else Jason talked about. Authenticity in AI design.
Okay, authenticity, I like that. But what does that actually mean when we're talking about AI?
He was saying how people can totally tell when something feels fake, forced, you know? Especially with AI. So instead of trying to create this perfect AI, he's more into embracing the imperfections.
So like letting the AI make mistakes. Have a sense of humor about it even.
Yeah, designing a little vulnerability, letting it acknowledge its limitations. That's how you build trust, make it feel more relatable, more human, basically.
Because who trusts something that's perfect? Right, it's like that saying perfection is the enemy of progress.
100%. And Jason, he gets that. He's not trying to just recreate what we've seen in movies, like Her. He's critical of designers who try to do that without really understanding what made it work.
It's easy to get caught up in the hype without thinking critically about what's underneath it all.
Exactly. He wants designers to go deeper, to really get the nuances of human connection and emotion.
Which goes back to his whole thing with Dot. It's not just a digital assistant, it's something way more personal.
Yeah. Totally. He talked about how so much tech today is designed for, like, the lowest common denominator, appealing to everyone by being kind of bland.
Right, got to reach the widest audience.
But he's saying AI can be different. It has the potential to be truly personalized, something that can actually evolve with the user.
Imagine that tech that adapts to us for once instead of the other way around. It's a cool thought.
It is. And to get there, Jason says, we got to move past our obsession with screens and buttons.
You mean get our faces out of our phones?
It's more than that. It's about the limitations of designing for pixels. He wants us to imagine interacting with tech in more natural ways, like using voice, gestures, even our emotions.
So instead of tapping glass, it's more like, I don't know, a conversation, a flow state.
Yeah. And he sees AI as the key to unlocking that. And again, thinking beyond just the obvious uses for AI, you know, like what about creativity, self-expression, even spiritual growth?
It's a whole different way of seeing technology, not just as a tool, but as something more.
Exactly. He wants us to ask ourselves, what do we want the future to look like? And how can AI help us build that?
Such a good question. Speaking of the future, didn't Jason mention they're working on Dot 2.0? Any hints about what that might be?
He was super secretive about it. All he said was it involves fundamentally inverting one of their core assumptions about the product.
Ooh, That's intriguing. I love a good mystery.
Clearly, Jason's not afraid to shake things up. And, he talked about what he's looking for in designers, and it seems like he wants people who feel the same way.
Yeah, that job description, it was wild. He's not just looking for someone who can make pretty apps.
Definitely not. He wants people who really get the creative potential of AI, Like, this is a whole new world, not just another design
And
problem.
you can't just teach that. It's got to come from within, that spark.
100%. He talked about curiosity, playfulness, being okay with experimenting. That's big for any designer, but with AI, crucial.
He had that great line about musicians finding inspiration in unexpected places.
Mm.
You got to be open to just messing around sometimes, right?
Exactly. And I think that's what I love about Jason's approach. He's not afraid to break the mold, push those boundaries.
Yeah, he reminds us that the future of AI, it's not some predetermined thing. It's being shaped right now by people asking big questions, taking risks.
And that's really what I hope people take away from this. It's not just about the tech, the algorithms. It's about us, what makes us human, what connects us.
It's about using this incredible tool to tell new kinds of stories, experiences that really resonate.
Exactly. So yeah, think about it. What's your AI story going to be?